Hello, friend. Did you know that plants and herbs grow in both directions? An herbalist friend of mine explained that to me that they grow, um, they respond to what the dirt is doing around their roots, and they also respond to the air and the sun. And what does this have to do with astrology? I'm sure you're asking. Well, I was thinking about this as I was reflecting on the upcoming full moon in Scorpio. That's going to be May 1st, and it's going to be happening at 1:23 p.m. exact Eastern Time, 1:23 p.m. Eastern at 11 degrees 20 arc minutes. But before I get into the details of that, I just want to let you know or introduce myself. Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you're returning. I'm Darice at Moonlife Astro. I am an astro counselor, so I'm an astrologer, I do energy work, I'm a mystic, psychic, and I help people recover their truth, see themselves more fully. And I have offerings, which I'll get into towards the end of this video, but I have one-on-one sessions, I have a school community, and there'll be links down below. So let's get into this full moon in Scorpio, which will probably be intense. Just because Scorpio is intense, full moons tend to be intense. So a full moon in Scorpio will probably be especially intense. And I'll get into some of the actual aspects as well. But I first want to reflect on the fact that Scorpio is a fixed water sign. And I always find that fascinating, because when we think of fixed, we think of it being like immovable, entrenched. But water is always moving. And so when I think of Scorpio and it being a fixed water sign, I always feel like it's like the ocean. Like the ocean is so massive and you really can't contain it. And because it's so big, you know, on a certain level, it doesn't actually move. You know what I mean? Like the ocean takes up the space that it takes up. And at the same time, it's always moving. And I feel like that's Scorpio energy. And this full moon on May 1st is going to be coming off of that great Aries stellium that many astrologers have been talking about that really dominated the last part of April. You're probably still feeling it because this is going to be going up April 28th. And that's a stellium is when we have three or more planets or bodies in the same sign. And around the new moon in Aries, we had at least six planets in Aries. So the Sun, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Chiron, and did I say Venus? Oh, Saturn, yes, and Neptune, yeah. So six bodies for sure. And so we had a lot of intense energy in Aries. It was a catalyst, and it feels like whatever got seeded at the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries February 20th is coming to fruition. Like we finally got clarity on what the next steps were, what we had to move on in April. And that Aries energy kicked people into gear. It got us going, it got us started, or maybe it helped you take something to the next level. And that's what it's definitely done for me. I'm growing my podcasting. I'm going to continue to work on that. And that's where that Aries stellium really kicked up for me, was to really continue to use my voice, to expand my voice. And this full moon in Scorpio is going to be a continuation of that. And especially because new moon energy, it dominates till the next new moon as well. So even as you have a full moon that's wrapping up what got seeded 6 months prior, um, especially with this full moon in Scorpio, I think it's still going to have some of that flavor of whatever came up for you in that Aries energy. Um, I feel like that Aries stellium was helping us get in touch with our anger and our rage. We have to learn how to move from the ugly rage to the sacred rage. And I feel like that's what April is teaching us. And so there may be some epiphanies or revelations that come up around anger for you around this full moon, and probably also in the collective, unfortunately. I wouldn't be surprised if we have really unpleasant revelations around either the war or the e-files or both. And then we'll have to deal with the internal reaction to that, how we move through that and alchemize that. But before I get into that, I want to get into the aspects of it, and I might be looking at my notes. So this full moon on May 1st, we're going to have Scorpio squaring Pluto in Aquarius. So when you have water squaring air, it's more about getting more emotional clarity around what you're feeling. We also have Mercury and Chiron in Aries conjunct for this full moon at 27 degrees. So Mercury, how we communicate, how we speak. Chiron, the wounded healer, the wound that we're always healing, growing, learning from. We probably had stuff come up around our unhealed wounds or what's causing our anger in that Aries stellium. And so now this full moon is showing us what we've learned and what we're ready to release, how we're ready to communicate about those feelings. We also have Mars and Aries squaring Jupiter and Cancer. So that fire energy squaring water. Again, there's a lot of emotional stuff happening with this full moon, with all this water energy. And also, we have some supportive aspects. We have Venus and Taurus trining Pluto and Aquarius. So we have Earth trining air. And we also have Venus sextiling Saturn in Aries. So we have Earth sextiling fire. So that kind of gives us a little bit of support, a little grounding, a little foundation to what's coming up emotionally, what's being unearthed inside of us. A much clearer understanding of our wounds as a result of the Aries stellium and more emotional clarity that's now guiding our actions and our momentum. So, whatever you started working on in April, or even these past 6 months from the previous new moon, that's now coming to fruition or harvest at this full moon, you're seeing that. You're seeing probably the fruits of your shadow work that you've been doing the past 5 or 6 months. That's what my intuition is around this particular full moon. So you are probably much more clear now about what's no longer working for you, either personally or professionally. Or if not, this full moon will probably bring you that clarity, either during the 3 days leading up to it, on the actual full moon itself. And then you're going to have to figure out what your next steps are. Um, we're probably going to have a lot emotionally this last week of April that surprises us on a collective level that we then have to alchemize internally and externally as well. It's also a few days before Pluto begins his annual retrograde. So you may be feeling the intensity of that as well. I'm going to be talking about that in an upcoming video. So I won't get into that too much. But if things are feeling heavy, if things are really feeling intense, this is probably part of it, this build up towards the full moon in Scorpio. And how are you working with it? What I would encourage, what I do invite is to not tamp it down, to not push it down, to actually sit with it. Whatever is uncomfortable that is rising to the surface, whether it be grief or anger or even rage, because we need to feel the intensity, what makes us uncomfortable, in order to let it breathe and move out. It's like muddy water coming to the surface that needs to be cleared, rinsed away. And so this is probably a great week for shadow work, meeting with your therapist, your body workers, doing the emotional processing, maybe journaling, maybe writing by freehand. This is what I like to encourage people to do. I like to use the astrology as an invitation to do spiritual work, shadow work. And one good activity too would be water rituals, especially since this is the full moon in Scorpio. Maybe a long hot bath or salt showers, where you can, after you wash yourself with soap and water, you have a bottle of lukewarm water, like usually a plastic bottle filled with salt and like filtered water. And then you rinse the body off with that as a way to rinse away energy. Or you can take a salt water bath. These are things that might be good to do either leading up to the full moon or on the full moon itself, as a way to give yourself space to feel your emotions, to give yourself time and space to cry if you need to grieve. Often, what's under rage, in my experience, is often unexpressed grief. So, we all may need to take time to grieve, to actually feel, to be sad, to actually cry, to have that cleansing experience. Water moons are always great for that in particular. And so if there's been a lot that you're saying goodbye to, give yourself space to say goodbye to it. Maybe you're experiencing your own ego death. Maybe you're saying goodbye to older versions of yourself. And it feels scary because that's all you've known. That's what's helped you stay safe in the past. But now there is a new way to be safe in yourself and in the world. And that is what's being birthed in the astrology of this year. Ultimately, I feel like a lot of this year's astrology is about helping us be in our sacred power and to embody it. But before we can move to that, we have a lot of old stuff to be released, old versions of ourselves, old ways of being. And so sometimes we need time to move through that. And I think this is also a good time to just talk about um, the Scorpio journey. In astrology, they talk about the three stages of the Scorpio evolution. I'm looking at my notes. So we have the Scorpion. So you start with that instinct and survival base. That's the raw emotion, the intensity, the defensiveness that people sometimes associate with Scorpio. That's when we're in that space of holding grudges or wanting to strike out at someone like a scorpion. And that's a means of self protection because we feel vulnerable and unsafe. But then you evolve and get to the space where you're in the snake serpent, that transformation and wisdom phase. So you've released the old grudges, you've shed those hidden agendas, and now you're bridging like the gap between the earthly scorpion and the elevated eagle, which is the third stage. The eagle, which can also sometimes alchemize into the phoenix rising from the ash. So the elevation and mastery phase, the higher stage, where you rise above the petty emotions and you're in a more integrated space. And so this full moon could be asking us individually and collectively to go through all three of those stages: the scorpion, the snake, and the eagle slash phoenix. And where have you done that in the past 5, 6 months in your life? Maybe you've already gone through this journey and this is what's coming to culmination and fruition. And if that's the case, celebrate yourself for that. Be proud that you've done that work and you're now in the phoenix phase of rising from the ashes. That's basically what I wanted to talk about here today. Hope you're doing well. Wanted to also remind you of all of my offerings. I have my school community, Moon Life Illuminated, and that's on the SKOOL school platform. $9 a month or $50 a year. I also have a one-to-one 30-minute session, Witnessing You, where I meet with you one-on-one, and I can help witness back to you the truth of yourself, highlight for you maybe some of your blind spots, what's keeping you from being your full true self or living from your zone of genius. And that is a taste of my longer You Illuminated session, which is 90 minutes. And there's a link down below for that. And in that 90-minute session, I give you a fuller expression of where I can mirror back to you the truth of yourself. I'm also developing a one-on-one VIP day experience. It's a 5-hour experience. And so if you get on my email list, you'll learn more about that as well. And there's a link below to join my email list. And or if you click on the link to receive my free ebook on how to move with the cycles of the moon, that'll also put you on my email list where you'll get to learn about that and other future offerings as I develop them. But that's basically it. Just wanted to come in, give you some ideas on how to be with this full moon energy. And like I said, water rituals are really good for a full moon. So maybe you'll have time to do that. But as always, do whatever you can to be self-nurturing, take care of yourself, stay hydrated, drink lots of healthy water, eat lots of healthy, nutritious, high value food or high nutrition food. Walk outside, get your exercise, get lots of fresh air when you can. Spend quality time with friends and loved ones, both online and in real life. Make sure you're making time to meet with people face to face. That's really important as we go through these historic and turbulent times. And just sending you so much love. Um, and I'm always supporting you. And know that you have all that you need access to you. It's either inside of you or often it's just one step away. You just have to reach out and ask for help. So if you do need help, do get the support that you need, whether it's from me or from someone else. There is so much that we have access to. So definitely give yourself permission to access those things because you are worth the support. You are worth all the love, joy, peace, and harmony that you can experience in the world. With that, may you always honor the light within you.